Ethan's wife was always chilly and detached. Throughout their decade-long marriage, she never uttered the words, "I love you." Just before he passed away, he stumbled upon a love letter she had been holding on to for years. Strangely, it wasn't meant for him. Turns out, she was simply indifferent toward him. When Ethan was reborn, the first thing he did was call off their engagement and assist her in delivering that mysterious letter. She blushed with fury and, for the first time, screamed at him. "Who asked you to interfere in my life?" An hour before the elevator crash, Ethan was rummaging through the attic and found a yellowed love letter. The handwriting and signature seemed familiar, but the name at the top wasn't his. It turned out to be a note Lyla had written to another guy. As the elevator plunged, Ethan was left wondering who this man was, what he looked like, or if he was better than him. When Ethan woke up again, the sunlight outside was blinding, his head was foggy, and his brother, Matteo, was sighing beside him. "You're finally up. You had me freaking out there for a bit. Good thing everyone acted fast and got you to the infirmary." The boy in front of him, dressed in a high school uniform, left Ethan momentarily puzzled. 17-year-old Matteo was beside him. The warm feeling in his hands confirmed it wasn't just a dream. He was truly reborn. He heard footsteps rushing and a figure appeared in the light. "You okay?" Lyla glanced at him coldly, holding bread and milk. Familiar memories flashed instantly. That morning, Ethan had overslept, skipped breakfast, and fainted during morning exercises due to low blood sugar. Lyla handed him the food and watched him eat. That day, Lyla had a small physics test, but skipped it because of Ethan, later getting scolded by the teacher. 17-year-old Ethan was still lost in the fantasy that she cared about him. But now, with his 32-year-old mindset, he realized Lyla only looked after him because she had promised her father she would. Lyla's dad and Ethan's father were old comrades. After her father died in the line of duty, Lyla's mother took the compensation money and left. Seeing Lyla alone, Ethan's dad took her in and raised her. Living under someone else's roof, she always obeyed Ethan's dad and never dared to oppose him. From that day, Lyla became Ethan's little sidekick. Everyone behind their backs joked about them, saying Ethan had a well-behaved child bride. Later, when Ethan's dad noticed his little crush, he teased Lyla, saying she'd be their daughter-in-law someday. She didn't say a word then. Ethan thought she was just shy, but looking back, he realized how naive he was. During class, Ethan was distracted, replaying his past life events. He didn't want to drag Lyla down anymore. Maybe if he didn't marry her, she'd be happier, and perhaps he wouldn't die in the end. During evening study sessions, the teacher went over time by 10 minutes, and after class, students rushed out in a crowd. As Ethan packed his things, he noticed Lyla standing at the door, waiting for him for quite a while. Her head down, holding her mistake book, the light shining on her made her seem even more distant and cold. They walked out of the school building in silence. Lyla was always like this, aloof and indifferent, as if nothing interested her. Watching her walk ahead, Ethan suddenly stopped. "Lyla, you should head home first. You don't need to walk with me anymore, and you won't have to wait for me in the future." "Why?" Lyla asked coldly. "No reason. You're free now, Lyla." Ethan headed toward the back street of the school, planning to buy some exercise books to work on his weak math skills. Behind him, someone caught up and asked coldly, "Ethan, what's up with you this time? Is it because I was late this morning, or you didn't like the milk I bought?" The supermarket only had that flavor left. Moonlight cast a cold, desolate glow on her. Her eyes seemed to say, "What are you up to now?" Ethan tried to explain, "It's really not like that. The college entrance exams are coming up, and everyone's time is precious. You don't need to waste yours on me. I need to work hard, too." Lyla froze, probably hearing Ethan say something like that for the first time. Ethan used to love sticking with Lyla. He didn't get into Beijing University, but Lyla did. However, in the end, she chose to stay in their hometown because of something Ethan's dad said. At the time, Ethan foolishly thought she liked him, but just didn't say it out loud. She must have regretted it since Beijing University was her dream school. Ethan didn't follow Lyla. He walked into the bookstore, picked out a few exercise books and a book on essay writing. When he went to pay, he realized his money was gone. Puzzled, he searched the store but couldn't find it. Deciding to return the next day, he turned around and bumped into someone. "Watch out!" the person exclaimed, dropping her comic book as she tried to protect her barbecue bowl. "Sorry, why is it you again?" The familiar voice made Ethan look closely. It was Maya, a close friend from college. "How come I'm running into her now? What a coincidence. This morning, my friend and I took you to the infirmary after you fainted. You okay now?" "Oh, yeah, I'm fine, thanks." Ethan realized he hadn't expected this kind of encounter in his previous life. Maya picked up her comic book and noticed him hesitating. She took his books and paid for them as well. "I saw you wandering around the store earlier, looking for something? Did you lose your money?" Ethan quickly nodded. Maya, destined to study criminal investigation, observed everything closely. "I'll return the money tomorrow," Ethan said, but Maya waved it off. "Just treat me to a meal instead." They walked out to the back street where fewer people were around. Seeing some delinquent youth smoking up ahead, Ethan offered to walk Maya home. He grabbed a black motorcycle from the garage, and when they arrived at her building, the motorcycle's roar faded away. Worried someone upstairs might yell at them, Maya asked Ethan to keep it down when he left. He smirked. "Can't really keep it quiet. My bike's just that powerful." When he got home, he unexpectedly ran into Lyla at the apartment entrance. "Strange. Didn't I tell you to go home first? How come you're even later than me?" Lyla walked up with him, and there was an inexplicable tension in the silence. As the elevator doors closed, she suddenly spoke. "Is that girl the reason you're working so hard?" "No, we just ran into each other, just a coincidence." Her tone was indifferent, as if she didn't really care. Ethan didn't bother explaining further. When they got home, Lyla usually finished her homework before showering. While she was in the bathroom, Ethan sneaked into her room and found the love letter she always hid under a pile of books. Easy to find, he opened the letter. But no matter how much he thought about it, he couldn't figure out who this Lee classmate was. Could it be someone from her class? With how cold she was, he doubted she could ever catch anyone's interest. Maybe he should give her a hand. The next day, Ethan showed up at school with dark circles under his eyes. After investigating all night, he found there were only 2 girls with the surname Lee in Lyla's class, no boys. Math class was another blur. Even though he was reborn, the questions he couldn't solve before were still beyond him now. It seemed the gap between Lyla and him was destined to remain. At noon, Ethan was about to take Maya out for lunch, but to his surprise, Lyla was waiting for him at the door again, holding a bag with his favorite roast chicken. "I told you don't need to wait for me anymore. Just do your own thing." "Oh, thanks, but you don't have to buy it for me anymore." Lyla looked at him confused, sighing slightly. "Ethan, what did I do to upset you? You've been avoiding me lately." "It's not you, it's me. I've just realized a few things." As Ethan walked toward the cafeteria, he remembered something and turned back to her. "You've been avoiding me lately. It's not you, it's me. I've just realized a few things." Speaking seriously, he added, "By the way, when my dad said you should be my wife, he was just joking. You don't have to take it seriously. And you don't have to listen to him so much, Lyla. Do your best on the college entrance exams and go to your dream university." Lyla frowned, seemingly not understanding why he was saying these things. When Ethan arrived at the cafeteria, Maya had already found a spot and was waiting for him. "What's that?" Maya glanced at the bag in Ethan's hand. "Roast chicken for you. Thanks for helping me yesterday." "Hey, no need to be so formal." Maya waved her hand dismissively, but after catching the aroma of the roast chicken, she couldn't resist and took a drumstick. Once she started, she couldn't stop, devouring it with gusto. Just as Ethan was about to remind her, a cold voice interrupted. "No wonder you were so eager to ditch me. Are you two dating?" Maya was so startled she nearly choked. Ethan turned around and met Lyla's indifferent gaze, feeling a strange sense of guilt, as if he'd been caught cheating. "Wait, no, we're not married anymore." Maya sensed something was off between them and made an excuse to buy some water. It's not what you think. I just met her. We're just classmates. Ethan was telling the truth, but Lyla cut him off impatiently. You don't need to explain. I won't tell Uncle, so there's no need to avoid me. She said this coldly, turning away with a hint of anger. When Maya returned, she quietly asked Ethan who that girl was. Judging by her gossipy expression, she probably thought Lyla and Ethan were a couple. Ethan briefly explained their situation, and Maya smiled knowingly. Oh, childhood sweethearts. Ah, she seems to care about you. Not really. Lyla can't wait to get rid of me. On Friday after school, Mateo wanted to try the new dish at the barbecue restaurant across from the school and dragged Ethan along. This place had been around for a long time and always had great business. The roast chicken Lyla bought for Ethan came from here. Mateo ordered 2 portions of the special roast chicken. While waiting, Ethan overheard the staff saying they were out of stock and discussing it with the owner, Mr. Carter. From the corner of his eye, he saw a boy in a school uniform slip into the back. It was Sam Carter, Mr. Carter's son. Ethan saw Sam's name on the list of participants for the English essay competition. He was a top student, always in the top 50 of the grade. Sam had participated in many competitions and was academically excellent, so he must have interacted with Lyla. No wonder Lyla often bought him roast chicken. Every time she came here, she got to see the person she wanted. She always seemed to be in a good mood afterward. Ethan used to think it was because of him. A wave of displeasure rose in him, which he forcibly suppressed, confirming that Sam was the one mentioned in the love letter. He approached Sam as he came out and greeted him. Hey Sam, I'm a friend of Lyla's. She left something behind. Huh, did she? Sam wasn't very suspicious. He checked his bag and said, She just explained 2 math problems to me and lent me her math notebook. I don't think she left anything behind. So they did know each other. Ethan recognized the familiar orange notebook cover. It was one he had bought for Lyla. He used to ask her for help with math problems, but she was never very patient. Embarrassed that he couldn't understand, he eventually stopped asking. Maybe I remembered wrong. I'll tell her later. Mateo and Ethan left, and Mateo excitedly handed him the roast chicken, but Ethan had no appetite. It turned out that when you're feeling down, everything tastes bitter. Why aren't you eating? Isn't it good? Hey, what were you talking to Sam about? Nothing much. How do you know his name is Sam? Mateo looked around and lowered his voice. My friend said he's Mr. Carter's adopted son, so I remembered him. Oh. Now that Ethan knew who the love letter was for, a weight lifted from his heart. He wondered what kind of feelings Lyla had when she wrote that letter. He was really envious of Sam. Thinking back to when he confessed to Lyla in their 2nd year of high school, he remembered her cold and distant response. That night, after finishing his mistake corrections, he planned to memorize some English vocabulary. His phone lit up with several documents from Maya. Maya, these are math worksheets from my mom. You should try them out. If you don't understand something, ask me. Her mother was a tutor for an advanced math class, so he was getting some special tutoring as well. He thanked her and sent a funny emoji. Suddenly, the door to his room burst open. Lyla walked in with a dark expression. The first time she hadn't knocked. Did you mess with something in my room? She didn't say what, but Ethan knew. A guilty feeling welled up inside him as he took out the letter from the drawer. Sorry, I didn't mean to snoop. I intended to help you 2 get together, but I didn't expect to be caught so quickly. Lyla took back the letter, her face unhappy. Probably because her secret had been exposed. Feeling bitter, Ethan still gathered his courage. I know who you wrote that letter to. It's that guy from the barbecue shop. Right, since you like him, you should confess soon. He's so awesome. What if someone else snatches him away? Who asked you to meddle in my business? She glared at him, anger simmering in her eyes. I just want you to be happy. Happy? You scoffed. It seems like you started dating and couldn't wait to get rid of me. You used to say you liked me, but you changed your tune pretty quickly. Ethan was stunned. Not expecting her to think this way. You don't like me. You don't even like me. So why should I put all my eggs in one basket? He retorted angrily, "Yeah, you'd better not put them here. I can't stand the smell," she said coldly, before turning away and slamming the door. Ethan bit his lip, seething with determination. "Lyla, I will never like you again in this life." For the next week, Ethan didn't say a word to Lyla. His dad thought they were both just focused on preparing for the exam, so he didn't say anything. Over the weekend, Ethan went to the library with Maya to work on some problems. She was better than him academically, and her thinking was more flexible, so she often explained things to him. When she felt stressed, he took her for a ride on his black motorcycle. Thinking about how they would be lifelong best friends gave him some hope for the future. Maybe it was because he doubled his efforts this time. His grades improved by more than 10 places in the monthly exams. His dad got a call from his homeroom teacher, grinning from ear to ear. "Ethan, impressive. Dating hasn't affected your studies, and secretly crushing on someone didn't stop you from getting first place, did it?" He deliberately retorted and turned back to his room to work on his assignments, avoiding her sour expression. There was only 1 month left until the college entrance exams, and he was the most focused and detached he had ever been, with nothing but questions and scores in his mind. He didn't even have time to think about romance. June came with its scorching heat, arriving together with the exams. This time, Ethan was fully prepared and felt confident as he began writing. Even the final math problem, which he used to give up on, he managed to answer something, though he wasn't sure if it was correct. The final bell rang, marking the end of the exam and his high school journey. Once again, as he walked out of the exam room, he saw Sam standing with Lyla. She seemed anxious, probably because she didn't do well on some questions and was nervously comparing answers with him. Maybe love is truly blind. As Lyla seemed more patient with him than with anyone else, Ethan walked past them and headed toward Mateo and Maya. They had planned to go to the amusement park, karaoke, and Happy Valley to enjoy themselves to the fullest. In the time before the scores were released, Ethan spent his days going wild outside, and his dad didn't even bother to control him anymore. Surprisingly, Lyla called him every day, asking when he would be home. Sometimes, if it got too late, he would take Maya home first. Whenever Lyla found out, she always had something snarky to say, like today, which happened to be Ethan's birthday. He officially turned 18, and it was past midnight when he got home, slightly tipsy, with Maya leisurely walking him back. When they reached the building, Lyla suddenly called out to him, "Ethan, how about I spend every birthday with you from now on?" It was too dark to see her expression clearly, and Ethan thought she was declaring the start of their revolutionary friendship. "Of course, you're my best buddy." He gave her a few hearty pats on the back, and she coughed a few times, hiding the sadness in her eyes. "You hit so hard, you almost lost a buddy." They both laughed. Just then, they ran into Lyla, who had come downstairs to take out the trash. She stared at them resentfully and said with irritation, "Ethan, it's past midnight. Why aren't you home yet? Hey, you'd better go back. Your little childhood friend is calling you." Maya teased in a low voice, waved at Ethan, and reminded him to drink some honey water when he got home. On the way up in the elevator, Lyla kept nagging. For the first time, Ethan found her as talkative as an old lady. "Are you done yet? I'm home, aren't I?" She stiffened. "Am I annoying? Didn't you promise me you'd be home before 10? What if something happened to you? How would I explain it to Uncle?" Today was an exception, and I was with Maya and the others. There was no danger. Even if I didn't come home, I'd have somewhere to go. Out late at night and not coming home. Where do you plan to go with her? Just because you're dating doesn't mean you can act recklessly. Lila's tone grew stern, and she looked entirely on edge. Ethan glanced at her curiously. "Why are you being so harsh?" She averted her gaze awkwardly and fell silent. When they got home, as Ethan was pouring himself some water, she spoke in a quiet voice. "Today's your birthday. Why didn't you invite me?" "Oh, I forgot." The truth was, Ethan didn't forget. He just didn't want to remember unhappy things on such a happy day. Lyla lowered her eyes, looking downcast, and went to the fridge to get some honey for him. After a moment, she handed him a blue box. "Happy birthday." "Thanks." Ethan finished his honey water but felt no urge to open the gift box. She hesitated for a while, as if she wanted to say something, but then lowered her head and returned to her room. He didn't expect much from the gift she gave him. Every year in the past, she would give him character cards from anime, the kind you get for free when you scan a QR code on the street. Those cards were everywhere. He still had those cards lined up by his bedside. Reluctantly, Ethan opened the box and was stunned. It was a handmade little boy with a cool backpack, resembling him when he was younger. The person who made it was clearly a beginner. There were 2 visible holes in the weave. She actually made this by hand. This was truly a rare occurrence in his life. When the college entrance exam results were released, Ethan's dad was with them as they checked their scores. Lyla, unsurprisingly, scored high as always, 698. When Ethan saw his score, 622, tears welled up in his eyes. "That's great. That's really great. You've both made me so proud," his dad said, eyes red. He patted Ethan's head and said he would take them out for a big dinner that night. He took a screenshot of the scores and immediately posted it on his social media to show off. "By the way, Ethan, which school are you thinking of? When are you going to fill out the application?" "I'm planning to stay local at a 985 university. I want to stay close to Dad." "Mateo and Maya are also thinking about staying in the province." "Good, good. That way I won't have to worry about you being alone in an unfamiliar place. In my last life, I didn't do well and ended up choosing an engineering major. This time, I could choose to study medicine. My mother passed away when I was very young, and back then, medical care wasn't as advanced. So I want to do my part to contribute as much as I can." Lyla didn't seem surprised by her score. Sam probably scored similarly, so they could go to Beijing University together. "That's great." While Ethan's dad was on the phone, Lyla suddenly asked him, "You want to stay here mainly because of Maya, right? Do you really like her that much?" "What does that have to do with you?" Ethan was starting to get annoyed with her. It felt like she was meddling more and more lately. Lyla stared at him, her gaze no longer as indifferent as before. "If you say the word, I can stay in the province with you too." "There's no need. Your grades are so good, staying here would be a waste. You should go to your dream school, Beijing University. Sam will probably get in too, so you'll have someone to accompany you." Ethan didn't give her the love letter. Suddenly, his phone lit up. Maya was calling him just as he was about to answer. Lyla grabbed his wrist, visibly upset. "Don't you care at all?" "Care about what? Care about you? Who was it that said not to put all my eggs in one basket? Afraid it would bring bad luck." Even though Ethan repeated her exact words back to her, her face instantly paled. He shook off her hand and went to the balcony to take the call. Maya's parents both work in the province, so she decided to stay here, and we ended up choosing the same university. Great. We can keep going on motorcycle rides together. After that day, I didn't pay much attention to what Lyla was up to. Whether she pursued Sam or not was no longer my concern. The summer vacation flew by, and Ethan spent his days hanging out with Maya. They learned to drive and got their licenses, getting so much sun that they both got tan. Lyla received her acceptance letter from Beijing University, and without saying goodbye, she left for school, as if she was upset with Ethan. The life of a medical student was incredibly busy. With so much to learn, Ethan spent his days running between the library and the classroom. Even meeting Maya for a meal required careful scheduling. During finals, as he stared at the 2 thick, brick-like textbooks, he was almost in tears. Maya, noticing he had lost weight, often brought him food and kept him company while he studied. "Why do you look so relaxed? Don't you need to study?" Ethan asked. Looking at her, "It's all in my head," Maya shrugged. "I envy everyone with a good memory," she added, because Maya often came to see him. Their classmates started talking, thinking she was pursuing him, and Ethan could faintly sense that she treated him differently. But Maya always acted as if nothing had changed, so he didn't bring it up either. After the exams, Ethan celebrated Maya's birthday at school, but his mind was occupied with whether he had answered the pathology questions correctly. Maya looked at the candles and smiled. I don't really have any wishes, so why don't you make one for me? Ethan, don't be so gloomy. From now on, I'll make all my wishes for you. Will that make you smile? Ethan forced a smile and didn't hesitate to make his wish. I hope I don't fail any classes. Please, I'm begging you. All right, the heavens have heard you. She blew out the candles, her eyes full of affection. During the summer break, Ethan saw Lyla for the first time in half a year. She had chosen to study law and seemed busy with various debate competitions and club activities at school. In the 2 weeks she was home, they coexisted peacefully, like strangers, until Thursday night, when Lyla went out with friends and came back very late. Ethan was almost asleep when he heard a stumbling noise at the entrance, followed by a crash against the hallway cabinet. He got up and saw Lyla sitting on the floor, looking dejected. What happened? Did you drink too much? Ethan was about to make her some honey water when she suddenly grabbed his wrist. Phew, I ran into Maya today. And? She said you two aren't together at all. Oh, Ethan responded indifferently, not realizing how much he was irritating her. Lyla suddenly stood up and hugged him, her eyes filled with complex emotions. Why didn't you tell me? Why did you let me misunderstand for so long? Was it fun for you to toy with me? Do you know that I... She trailed off, her eyes red and on the verge of tears. Ethan looked at her expressionlessly, but to say he wasn't affected would be a lie. Instead, he found it amusing. Lyla, Ethan explained, I told you back then, but you didn't want to listen. Now what right do you have to question me? In the silence, Lyla seemed to recall that day in the cafeteria, when she saw Ethan sitting with another girl. She had to admit, it bothered her a lot. That feeling had lingered, growing stronger over time. Lyla wiped her eyes and mustered the courage to look at him. Ethan, I don't think I can let you go. Can you keep liking me? Many times in the past, Ethan had imagined this scenario, but now that it was happening, it was too late. No, I can't. Why not? Is it because of that love letter? I was immature before, unable to distinguish between admiration and love. I don't like Sam. I just felt a connection with him as a fellow kindred spirit, and I never felt your love. All I ever felt from you was impatience and indifference. Give me a chance. Let's start over, and I promise you'll feel it. Please. She pleaded, her drunken eyes fixed on him as if he were her last lifeline. Ethan pushed her away several times, but she wouldn't let go. The more he resisted, the more desperate she became. Ethan, please love me. She leaned in to kiss him, and he panicked, jerking away and forcefully pushing her back. She crashed into the cabinet, the dull thud shattering the night's silence. The pain snapped her back to reality. Lyla slowly let go, her eyes full of sorrow. Ethan, I didn't want to hear any more. He quickly retreated to his room. The next day, Ethan tried to act as if nothing had happened, but Lyla looked at him with guilt in her eyes. At noon, Maya came to pick him up. They had planned to see the latest movie release today. She looked really pretty, wearing a floral dress. When she saw Ethan's downcast expression, she got worried. What's wrong? Are you sick or in a bad mood? Nothing. Ethan reached up to grab his hat, but Maya suddenly grabbed his wrist. There were a few scratches clearly caused by someone else. Did you do this to him? Yes, Lyla, Maya said, clearly already at the end of her patience. You little... Maya lunged at her, and Ethan quickly grabbed her in fear. But Lyla seemed to have found an outlet for her frustration and started pulling Maya's hair, ready for a fight, panicking. Ethan yelled at them to let go. If my dad came home to find this mess, he'd kill us. Stop it, both of you. Can't you calm down? He pulled Maya away, seeing that she had a few scratches on her face. What a future police officer, acting so impulsively. But Lyla didn't look any better. Maya had received training and knew exactly where to hit to cause the most pain, leaving Lyla pale. Though the marks weren't immediately visible, Maya fell silent under Ethan's glare and meekly said, "The movie's about to start. Let's go." "Forget the movie. You're hurt. Let's go to the pharmacy and get some medicine." Ethan angrily dragged Lyla out the door, completely forgetting that someone else was hurt too. Lyla watched them leave, covering her face in sadness. After buying the medicine, Ethan helped Maya apply it, and she winced in pain. From now on, no more fighting. What you learned is to protect people, not to start fights. She bullied you, and you're defending her. Lyla pouted, clearly not satisfied. I'm not defending her. I'm defending you. If you get reported and punished, won't that affect your future as a police officer? Maya paused, a small smile forming on her lips before she winced again. Ethan, you care about me that much? No. Yes, you do. After the fallout with Lyla, she didn't do anything extreme anymore, but it seemed like she really did start to like him and was trying to show it. Every holiday, she would come back to cook for him and give him carefully chosen gifts on his birthday, National Day, and Christmas. She was always around at school. Ethan watched her struggle with sleep deprivation, dark circles under her eyes. From rushing back by plane, he only felt like she was wasting her time, but she seemed to care only about whether he was happy. On his birthday in his senior year, Ethan was moving to another campus. Maya was interning at the police station and had been sent out on a mission, so she couldn't be there to celebrate with him. Lyla was in the kitchen cooking all his favorite dishes. He stared at his chat window with Maya, distracted. What are you looking at? Dinner's ready? Nothing. He wondered what Maya had been up to these days. Was her job dangerous? What if she... Ethan's sharp voice snapped him out of it. He realized he was sitting in front of Lyla. You've been talking about her since I got back. She was clearly displeased, but also helpless. Oh, sorry. Ethan, when will you ever look at me? Let's eat. This soup looks good. Lyla sighed, feeling like she had tried her best. But why couldn't things go back to the way they were? Late at night, as Ethan was about to sleep, his phone lit up. Maya, open the window. He quickly pulled back the curtains and saw Maya standing outside, waving something glowing in her hand. He ran down, surprised to see her. Didn't you say you might not be back from your mission? Yeah, but I couldn't help it. I promised someone that I'd spend every birthday with him from now on. She handed him a glowing jar and a box with his favorite sneakers inside. The fireflies in the jar flickered in the darkness. It's for you. I found them during the mission and thought you'd like them. Thanks. Ethan smiled at her, feeling like he had something to say. Maya. She seemed to guess what he was about to say and quickly interrupted. Ethan, happy birthday? He understood her hesitation. Given her job's unique nature, he swallowed his words and changed his response. Thank you. I'm really happy. While Maya was interning, Ethan was pursuing his graduate studies. By the time Maya became a team leader at the police station, Ethan had just started his hospital internship. Seeing suffering and death every day was emotionally taxing. Then, one day, several severely injured people were brought to the hospital. Maya was among them. She had been stabbed in the abdomen, her spleen was damaged, and she was bleeding profusely. Ethan's mentor operated on her for a long time before the red light outside the operating room finally went off. He took a moment to check on her. Her face was pale, and it looked like she might not make it. With red eyes, Ethan silently prayed that she would pull through. Late at night, he was by her bedside, reviewing neurosurgery notes, when he suddenly saw her fingers move slightly. He looked up and met her gaze. Ethan, did you save me? No, it was my mentor. He had only helped a little. He stood up to check her condition, asking if she felt dizzy or nauseous, making notes, and only then did he feel relieved. You look so professional now. Maya smiled, her eyes bright. Of course, I've worked hard for many years. Ethan felt relieved. You look so professional now. Maya smiled, her hand lightly touching his fingertips. After hesitating for a moment, she didn't hold on. A nurse came to get Ethan for rounds, and he gave her a few instructions before leaving. Back to the usual busy routine, Maya stayed in the hospital for a month, with many colleagues coming to visit her. Every time Ethan did rounds, her friends would give him knowing looks, as if they all understood something. But Maya didn't show any sign of anything. Even on the day she was discharged, she didn't say much, simply addressing him as Dr. Carter as usual. Ethan handed her the medicine, explained the instructions, and tried to subtly probe her. "Hey, Maya, don't you have anything to say to me?" "What, that I'll follow the doctor's orders?" She played dumb. Ethan smiled helplessly. In the following years, Maya frequently went on missions, traveling all over the country, and sometimes Ethan couldn't reach her. Lyla remained just as impressive, landing a job at a top law firm after graduation and becoming a star lawyer within a few years. She's wealthy now and occasionally sends Ethan strange but expensive things. Some of them he hasn't even had time to open, and they're all piled up in his dad's study. The hospital is so busy that sometimes he barely has time to eat. Lyla came to visit Ethan a few times, but they hardly exchanged any words before he was off to work again. Still, she was persistent, always finding time to contact him and occasionally sending gifts or meals to the hospital. Sometimes, when she was drunk, she called him and repeatedly asked, "Ethan, what do I have to do to make you like me? Will you tell me, please? Why are you treating me like this? You were the one who liked me first. How could you just change like that? I was wrong. I shouldn't have said those things. Will you come back? Can we go back to how we were? Ethan, I really miss you." No one's feelings can change just like that. In all the years they were together, and in the 10 years they were married in his past life, she had so many opportunities to say she loved him. Since she didn't, it was best to let it go. It was time to move forward. Time flew by, and Ethan found himself turning 32 this year. In his previous life, it was in December of this year that he died in an elevator accident. He wondered if there would be any accidents this time around. The ringing of the phone interrupted his thoughts. Maya's cheerful voice came through. "Dr. Carter, my birthday is next week. What do you plan to get me?" Ethan thought this mischievous girl had pretended not to understand his hints for years, making it seem like they weren't a couple yet, more than just friends. And now she wanted him to get her a gift. She chuckled softly. "The Bureau is planning to promote me. I'll be sent on fewer missions in the future, and I'll be able to settle down here in the province. Oh, and then I played dumb, just like her. This year, I'll make my own birthday wish. It's a bit special. Do you think it will come true? Why don't you give it a try?" Ethan feigned indifference, but a warm feeling welled up inside him. Before they could finish the call, a nurse rushed in, saying the hospital director was calling for an emergency meeting. Ethan quickly grabbed his notebook and headed over. The director announced that an 8.0 earthquake had struck Tongcheng, and their hospital needed to send personnel for support. No wonder he felt dizzy at noon. It wasn't just his imagination. His name was on the list. He quickly packed his things and joined the team heading to Tongcheng. When they arrived, the place was a scene of devastation and wails of despair. His colleagues and he didn't have time to dwell on the tragedy. They immediately joined the relief efforts. Supplies were insufficient and access roads were blocked, leaving them without many necessary medications. They all posted on social media for help, and Lyla contacted Ethan right away, saying she could donate supplies. "Thanks for helping," she replied. "Lyla, how are you thanking me? Is this the only way you'll talk to me?" "I have to go. Lyla, stay safe and reach out if you need anything." Late at night, just as Ethan was about to switch shifts with a colleague, a sudden tremor sent everyone into a panic. "Get under the table!" someone shouted. Ethan took a step forward, but the ground suddenly gave way. Chunks of earth fell from the collapsing ground. Then came the darkness, and he lost consciousness. The aftershock wasn't as strong as the initial quake, but it caused significant damage. Ethan was trapped underneath, pinned by debris, unable to move. He didn't know how much time had passed. His body started to go numb, his mouth was dry, and he didn't even have the strength to call for help. The darkness reminded him of that moment of free fall in the elevator. Was this all predestined? Was he still going to die? His phone in his pocket lit up. It was Maya calling, but he couldn't answer. How awful. Even after being reborn, he still couldn't be with the one he loved. His consciousness began to fade, and his body started to lose warmth. Suddenly, he heard frantic voices from above. "Ethan, where are you?" It felt like he had slept for an eternity. When he woke up, he found himself back in the hospital where he worked. "Ethan, you're awake. How are you feeling? Is there anything uncomfortable?" Maya was looking at him anxiously, tears welling up in her eyes. He shook his head. "How was the rescue? Are the colleagues who were trapped with me okay?" "They're all fine and the situation has stabilized." "Do you know you've been asleep for half a month?" she said, exasperated yet relieved, holding onto his hand like a precious treasure. "Thank goodness you woke up." She lowered her head, and tears fell onto the back of his hand, warm and intense. "Did you rescue me?" "Yes, I couldn't reach you, and then our team was sent to help." "Thank you. Thank me for what?" "You've saved me before. We're even now." Maya called the doctor to examine him, then bought nutritious meals and fed him spoon by spoon, just like taking care of a child. Ethan stayed in the hospital for a few days to recover, and Maya kept a close eye on him the entire time. On the day he was discharged, he hadn't forgotten about Maya's birthday. Confessing is something the guy should do first. After all, he packed up his things alone and secretly prepared some surprises with the help of friends. In the evening, Ethan waited for Maya to arrive at the hospital. As she approached the entrance, rose petals suddenly began to fall from the sky. Before she could react, Ethan got down on one knee, the ring he had prepared shining brightly in his hand. "Maya, I love you. I've loved you since high school, but I was afraid of interfering with your career, so I never dared to tell you. Now, will you give me this chance?" Maya froze for a moment, her face turning bright red with tears in her eyes. She nodded, blushing for the first time. Out of the corner of his eye, Ethan saw a familiar figure standing on the edge of the crowd. Lyla was holding a thermos, looking like she had rushed over, sweat beading on her forehead. Her face was pale as she watched the scene, her eyes filled with sadness. "I will," Maya said loudly, smiling. Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Finally, he had his answer. Maya hugged him tightly, bursting into tears of joy. "Wow, I've never seen the captain cry before." "You don't get it. This is love." "I'm so jealous. Is it too late to go back to high school? I don't want to be single anymore." That evening, Ethan received a message from Lyla. "Are you really going to marry her? Ethan, I've been with you the longest. Why is it her in the end? Won't you look at me again?" He deleted the message and blocked her. Turning off his phone, he held Maya close and drifted off to sleep peacefully. On the day Ethan married Maya, Lyla didn't attend, but she sent an incredibly expensive diamond. When Maya saw the gift, she immediately started making sarcastic comments, thinking Lyla's thief mindset hadn't let go yet. Then she had the diamond set in a collar and put it on Ethan's dad's husky. A year after Ethan got married, Lyla was still single. Later, when Maya gave birth to a daughter, Lyla was still single. Even Ethan's dad advised her to find someone, pointing out how many people were pursuing her. She quietly sipped her drink, her expression dark. After dinner, Lyla looked at the little girl in the cradle, pressing her lips together. "Ethan, she really looks like you." "Yeah, if only back then." She didn't finish her sentence, holding back whatever she was about to say with a slight sigh. Maya frowned, glaring at her with suspicion. "What are you trying to do?" "He's my husband, legally." "Don't get any ideas." Lyla sneered. "Only temporarily legal. Life is long. Who knows? Maybe one day you'll get divorced." She thought bitterly, feeling a pang of jealousy. "You—" Maya was ready to throw a punch again, but with the family around, she held back. On the way home, Maya was fuming, itching to curse out even the strayed dogs they passed. Later that night, while they were asleep, Maya suddenly sat up and asked Ethan, "Ethan, where did you put our marriage certificate?" "Why?" "I want to hide it." "Stop being silly." Ethan tried to go back to sleep, but she started rummaging through drawers, contemplating hiding places. Lyla's name was the first Ethan saw when he joined the Fu family. From day one, she knew she and Ethan would never be equals. Even though their uncle treated her well, if anything happened to Ethan, he would blame her for not looking after him properly. So she had always stayed close to Ethan, making sure he didn't get into trouble. Everyone called her his child bride. She didn't argue because that's exactly what she was, dependent on others. She hated that feeling. By extension, she also hated Ethan. He was always clinging to her, wanting to do everything together. She couldn't refuse him, but deep down, she resented it. To avoid making their uncle feel like he had adopted an ingrate, she had to please Ethan, ensuring he didn't get upset. As they grew older, Ethan became more handsome. Lyla found herself often stealing glances at him. When he caught her, she'd pretend to be aloof and tell him he was vain. She didn't want to fall for him. She didn't want to lose the last bit of self-respect she had. But in their second year of high school, Ethan confessed his feelings to her. She couldn't help but feel happy inside, though she forced herself to suppress it. He seemed a little disappointed by her response. But the next day, he was back to clinging to her. One day, he got sick, and the medicine was too bitter, so he asked her to get him some chicken. At the barbecue shop, Lyla met Sam. He had just dropped a freshly grilled chicken wing by accident, and his adoptive father scolded him, calling him useless. If Lyla hadn't been there, she feared men would have hit him harder. She observed Sam's cautious demeanor and felt like they were the same. After that, she often used the excuse of buying barbecue for Ethan to visit the shop and see Sam. Every time she bought the food, she didn't rush back. She would sit in the shop feeling like she could finally catch her breath. Those were the rare moments when she didn't have to care about Ethan or their uncle's emotions. Sometimes they talked about their families, and Sam would sigh, but then he'd go back to studying hard, like a resilient weed. Lyla thought she should like a boy like him. Only he could understand her feelings. She wrote Sam a love letter but never gave it to him. It always felt like her feelings for him weren't strong enough, and it wouldn't be fair to him. Lately, Ethan had been acting strange. He seemed to want to get rid of her. He saw him laughing and talking with Maya and figured out they were probably dating. So much for saying he liked her. It turned out he moved on so quickly. Lyla was secretly pleased, thinking she could finally be rid of him, but at the same time, she was angry. Why did he have to like someone else? Then she noticed the love letter was missing. She instinctively suspected Ethan had taken it, and she was flustered and angry when she went to confront him. To her surprise, he was calm, as if it didn't matter to him who she liked. She was really annoyed. When they were filling out college applications, Lyla told Ethan she could stay behind with him. But he didn't care about her anymore. Furious and upset, she went off to Beijing University, far away. Once she got there, she regretted it. She wasn't by Ethan's side, but Maya was. Ethan stopped paying attention to her. And even when he did, Maya's name was always on his lips. She hated that. She wanted to go back to the time when he was always clinging to her. But no matter what she did, they couldn't go back. Years went by, and Ethan and Maya still hadn't gotten together. Lyla thought she still had a chance, but Ethan was always busy and barely acknowledged her. No matter how expensive the gifts she sent him, he no longer smiled at her like he used to. She was terrified. When Ethan was injured during a rescue mission, she finally broke down and realized she couldn't wait any longer. She made his favorite soup and rushed over to see him. But it was too late. She regretted it so much. Maya was right. She had so many years to hold on to Ethan, but she didn't. She let him down. She pushed him away with her own hands. "Ethan, please be well.